Okay.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is O Sarahan, and we are here from a dialogue session by the delegation of the German Industry and Commerce in Nigeria, AHK. And the topic today is going to be the role of hydrogen in decentralized energy systems. So I will hand it over anyway to Godwin to introduce the course and tell us more about AHK. Godwin?
Thank you very much, Olsa. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, all of you who are joining from around the world. I can see good friends and new faces who are new to this webinar series. And I want to thank you all for joining today. I also want to thank our speakers today. We have 3 eminent speakers, and trust me, all of you who are attending today, you are all in for a treat. You are in for a treat. So thank you very much for joining. I am also very grateful to our partners and sponsors for today's webinar session, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, here represented by Mr. Festus Gakpo. I'm thankful to all of you for making today's webinar. Today's webinar is the 3rd in the series that we've been having since last year. And I'm sorry for the break in transmission because we took a while to get to the 3rd one from between the 1st and the 2nd one, so I apologize. But we are here now. Our plan is to have a total of 4 webinars, and this is number 3, to introduce the topic of hydrogen to the Nigerian public, to get them excited, to let them know that this is a possible energy future that Nigeria should be considering. We at the delegation of German Industry and Commerce, our role is to promote bilateral trade between Nigeria and Germany, whether that is in the area of hydrogen, whether it's in the area of renewable energy, whether it's in the area of water or circular economy, which are the areas that we focus on in our own competence center, the Competence Center for Energy and Environment. We try and promote this by organizing trade delegations, we do research, we do business consulting, we try and get German and Nigerian companies together in the same room so that they can, transact, do business, work together. And this sort of webinar series is another way we try to let the Nigerian public know about the potentials that Nigeria has in the area of renewable energy and hydrogen. So I'm very grateful that you have joined today's webinar session. I look forward to a very engaging session. And I'm, like I said before, I'm sure you guys will leave this webinar as the best webinar that you have ever attended, trust me. So no pressure, Merrick, no pressure. So thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to having an exciting day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godwin. I'm just going to introduce Festus Gaku, who is the Regional Program Energy, Security and Climate Change in Sub-Saharan Africa from CAS. So Festus, hi, thanks for joining us today. If you could just give us a little brief introduction of your activities.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining us. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Great. So my name is Festus Gaku. I sit in Nairobi here as a regional coordinator for the program on energy security and climate change in sub-Saharan Africa. And Konrad Adenauer Stiftung is basically, if I may give you a background, is a German political foundation. And we are aligned with the former ruling party, the CDU in Germany. And we do have a couple of activities we do engage ourselves in globally. One of those is on energy security and climate change here in Africa. And this program basically, what it does, it works on trying to realize activities around the nexus of energy security and climate change here, with the major objective on improving the political and social framework for the climate-friendly and sustainable development so that we can foster regional and international cooperations on energy security in the areas of adaptation and mitigation. So by and large, we focus on 3 key pillars, and one of those is creating awareness, that is raising awareness on climate change and its importance in Africa. And this is where CAS does try to create awareness on the interconnectivity of climate change and other areas of economy, such as human security and welfare. And the key pillar number 2 is where we try to improve the political framework for sustainable energy and climate policy. This is again where we look into the policy exchange. We sort of try to promote this on the local, national, regional, and international levels so that we could create a peer learning policy solution environment for energy, climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. And finally, we also deal with one more pillar. This is knowledge transfer. The knowledge transfer aspect is whereby we try to bring in startups, academias, and those kind of experts from the regional perspective so that they can learn from each other on strategies on developing and improving resilience and sustainability on energy security. So we are basically supporting this initiative for the Nigerian platform on hydrogen, because we feel like it has a lot of potential in terms of playing on energy mix in Africa. And this basically is trying to create very huge opportunities whereby you're trying to explore the concepts of renewable energy resources, so that we are able, in one way or the other, as a Nigerian country, to meet your own electricity demands and access in terms of a green target for this area. We're also looking into supporting this because we feel like it would make the region more relevant in the international energy markets. It would also create some energy options for the country, and especially from the crude oil and natural gas deposits. Basically, it will come in to complement. And also, we are thinking that it's a good initiative to support hydrogen exploration in Nigeria, because it also creates export of hydrogen, adding to the income source of the region, for example. And therefore, we feel that this is also a good opportunity when you're looking to the industrialization in Nigeria and also within the surrounding countries. And maybe other areas could be maybe the transport sector, the local value chains on e-mobility, for example. And therefore, that's why we as CARS have taken the opportunity to support this hydrogen sensitization campaign in Nigeria, and hoping that we shall have some very, very insightful discussions and also some opportunities going forward, of course, presented by our panels on this that webinar, I believe, Godwin. And
yes, please,
without much ado, I do wish that every one of you have a very exciting time, joining this session. And I wish that you learn as much as you can and see how we could possibly harness hydrogen accessibility in Nigeria as one of those key drivers into the energy mix in this region. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much, Festus. You've really just given us this massive enthusiasm for the conversation today. Thank you so much. So again, without any further ado and no particular order, I will be introducing our first panelist today. The first panelist today is Mr. Egwahide, who is an independent management consultant, and he has over 25 years of professional experience working in both Germany and across countries in West Africa. He has also been the Vice President of the LNG Business Development in West Africa and a managing director of the energy subsidiary. He is the co-founder of Stuff Story Limited in Lagos. He's also been the co-chair of the Nigerian-German Energy Partnership. He has held several member of the board positions, one of which include the Nigerian-German Chamber of Commerce in Lagos. He is an evangelist, as we'll get to know during this session, of the clean energy market, especially the energy transition, climate concerns, as well as digitalization and security in energy systems. So I'm really excited to hear from this experienced practitioner, Mr. Egwahide, as he puts up his slide. And after him, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Merrick when he's done. So, Mr. Egwahide, over to you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Good Morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining in this presentation. My role in this presentation is basically to present Nigeria's potential within the evolving hydrogen economy globally. Secondly, I'll be looking specifically at the opportunities and the potentials within Nigeria itself. And in doing that, give you a basic overview of how we could basically tailor the hydrogen economy to our own requirements in Nigeria. Most countries in the world are going down different paths in their energy transition, and Nigeria being an OPEC member and a fossil fuels and natural gas producer and exporter, needs to go down its own path to get to where to a scaled up and modern hydrogen economy. So I'll try to break this presentation into a brief introduction on green hydrogen and its role in energy transition, Nigeria's hydrogen economic potentials. I'll look into that aspect of national strategic intent. We hear a lot about people discussing why Nigeria has to do hydrogen as against using its natural gas, which it already has in place of hydrogen. So I'll go briefly into that, and then I'll go into the theme of this webinar, which is the decentralized use of hydrogen in Nigeria. And then I'll try to present something I and a couple of companies have been working on, which is trying to create a Nigerian hydrogen coalition, basically private sector driven, in partnership with the government to drive the development of hydrogen in Nigeria and within the West African space. So when we talk about hydrogen, I normally try to focus on green hydrogen. There are different hues and shades of hydrogen, as I will present later. Green hydrogen being hydrogen produced out of renewable energy sources, hydro, wind, solar, geothermal, and the like. And application areas of this green hydrogen could be, for example, in power generation and transportation as a feedstock for industries, especially the chemical industry. But then also hydrogen could be used in heating and cooling of businesses and even of major commercial enterprises. One of the targets in using green hydrogen, which has been stated in many countries, is to meet their net zero targets, which is reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases and to decarbonize their economies, right? The target in the Paris Agreement is to get our global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Nigeria has also signed on to these targets and has submitted its national determined contributions, which means we also have a target to reduce our to reach net zero. Most countries have a target of 2050. Whilst Nigeria has set a little later target, as we are not one of the major emitters in the world. But then the major emitters like the US, Germany, China, UK, France, and the likes are actually now in a race to transition into gigawatt scale hydrogen production or hydrogen consumption economies in a bid to actually meet those greenhouse greenhouse reduction and decarbonization targets. What now comes into mind, obviously, is what will be the situation for major oil and gas exporters like Nigeria when their major clients, those countries I stated earlier, move on to hydrogen. what's the role of hydrogen, both to Nigerian export sector, its oil and gas export sector, and what role can hydrogen play within Nigeria's own domestic environment. Now, green hydrogen, the main role for green hydrogen, obviously, is to reduce carbon emission. And in doing that, you hear people talk about two types of, they basically use the terms low carbon hydrogen, which basically relates to the different shades and hues of hydrogen presented within the slide. So we will be concentrating in this presentation on the first two, which is green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. Green hydrogen being that from renewable energy, which has the lowest carbon footprint. Some do say zero carbon footprint. I tend to be a little bit conservative on that. Blue hydrogen being hydrogen produced through natural gas reforming and carbon storage and sequestration with a relatively low carbon footprint. And naturally, you could also do gray hydrogen, which is produced directly from natural gas reforming, without the CCUS component, without the carbon capturing aspect to it. And then obviously you have things like brown hydrogen from coal, black hydrogen from coal, turquoise hydrogen from beta and pyrolysis of natural gas, also natural gas, which produces solid carbon, and then pink hydrogen, which is often discussed in countries with nuclear power as an alternative to green hydrogen, because European Union, for example, has declared nuclear energy partly green, so the nomenclature depends on which continent you currently are. So green, we may see more of pink hydrogen being discussed in future. But for Nigeria, green and blue hydrogen will tend to be the core focus. Now, one of the challenges in moving hydrogen into the mainstream in most economies is the cost factor and cost parity. How do we ensure that hydrogen hydrogen per kilogram gets to a price which makes it competitive with other fossil fuels? So globally, and going from the IEA Global Hydrogen Review from 2021, the target is to get hydrogen below $2 per kilogram. That will make it a little bit more competitive as compared to other fuels. Currently, prices are way too high, which is why also you see a lot of initiatives, a lot of grants and funding going into the hydrogen sector in billions in Europe, in the US, and in Asia, because those countries see hydrogen as a major potential future fuel for them. From the Nigerian perspective, this means what do we do to promote the use of hydrogen within the Nigerian context, where we already have subsidies in place for diesel, for PMS, still in place for PMS, and how do we get people to move from this off-grid production to such cleaner fuels, and as well as move our transportation sector from those fossil fuels to more decarbonized sources. So one of the targets within the global context is to move the price of hydrogen to somewhere around 1.3 to 3.5 US dollars per kilogram. So in the longer term, the target is also to get it below $1 US per kilogram, which would make it much more competitive. Now, a brief look at the hydrogen value chain. Hydrogen is mainly produced through electrolysis, which is a splitting of whereby renewable energy is used to electricity is used to split water into its components, which is hydrogen and oxygen, thereby without any effect on without producing carbon. and its inherent effects on the climate, on the environment. But one of the key things in doing this, obviously, is to have adequate renewable energy supply. And that brings us to the current situation in Nigeria with regards to renewable energy production. Whilst most people talking about renewable energy in Nigeria focus on solar power, we also need to look at other sources which we have already in place, such as hydropower through our dams, future smaller scale and medium-sized hydro production sites, which will give us an opportunity to also partly decentralize hydrogen away from the major electricity grid, which is inherent challenges in Nigeria right now. So this slide gives you an overview of what such a hydrogen supply chain could look like, starting from the left with the renewable energy production or generation, and then the production of hydrogen through electrolyzers highlighted in green, and then the use of hydrogen both as a fuel for the transport sector, as a feedstock for the petrochemical industry, and then as a feedstock and as a source of electricity, the source of energy for the steel, cement, and aviation sectors. In the aviation sectors, we will be talking about e-fuels, production of basically clean fuels, or in some cases you talk about e-kerosene, as some would say. And then there's also the opportunity for direct use of hydrogen through fuel cells in transportation through H2 mobility. So as you can see, a very broad spectrum of use cases, which will basically enable a transformation of the Nigerian economy towards a much more decarbonized economy, and then put us in a position for global competition. And one of the reasons I keep stressing this is, whilst we watch the hydrogen economy develop globally, having green products, for example, green steel, having your products labeled as being sustainable will become a key factor in future global trade, because this will be used as a barrier, as a non-technical barrier for your products in going, for example, into Europe, into the US. So the Nigerian policymakers need to watch the developments in this process, in this sector. So if we say we want to develop a steel sector, then we should know that people are already working towards green steel, as an example. If we talk about exporting liquefied natural gas, we should Merrick, you're unmuted. We should know that some countries are already exporting, have already done first shipments of what they call green LNG, basically meaning that the LNG production was decarbonized. So the LNG shipments, the LNG supply to the clients was basically of the carbon produced during its production process was offset through other climate projects, right? So this will become a competitive factor moving on. So Nigeria's hydrogen potentials presented in brief. There was a project which was presented in one of the AHK webinars, which is the H2 Atlas Africa project run by the German government and implemented by the Ulis Research Institute in Germany. I believe my dear friend Solomon Ago, who was the project manager, a Nigerian, who was the project manager of that project, presented it in one of the former webinars. The key result is that the West African region, including Nigeria, has high potentials for green hydrogen production. And when I say green hydrogen production, I then mean from renewable energies, right? Parallel to that, due to its huge gas reserves, Nigeria has also the potential for production of blue hydrogen and turquoise hydrogen, as the case may be. And this in itself is a very strong advantage for a country currently struggling with its energy supply. I will present later the opportunities in the decentralized electricity generation in Nigeria, which will enable us to also move hydrogen away from the grid, because most countries currently view hydrogen from the perspective of using their existing pipelines to supply their major industrial areas. But Nigeria could actually start from an off-grid perspective, whilst our pipelines and the electricity grid are built up under the declared age or decade of natural gas by the Nigerian president. But I'll come to that later on. And one key characteristic of the Nigerian hydrogen space, which we also need to keep in mind, is the availability, obviously, of water, since green hydrogen is mainly produced through electrolysis of water. So this map from the H2 Atlas also takes availability of water into consideration, since one of the SDG goals is availability of water to the populace. You wouldn't want to create an industry that basically now comes into competition in providing water to households as against producing hydrogen. So this map also takes that into consideration and shows a clear opportunity, especially in northern and central belt Nigeria. Now, another advantage of Nigeria in the hydrogen space is the experience that is already there in terms of technical experience in the gas sector, liquefied natural gas sector, offshore petroleum exploration and production. And this slide tries to show you in the pictures you see on the left, the current situation in Nigeria with the offshore rigs, the liquefied natural gas plants and Nigerian LNG, and the liquefied natural gas shipments, which are basically managed by Nigerian indigenous staff, right? And on the right, you see the futuristic production of hydrogen offshore using, for example, wind energy, offshore wind energy with storage systems inbuilt, which are similar in character to the current oil rigs. So experience offshore is already in place. We just need to up and reskill engineers to be able to do this other type of energy production, green energy production, meaning hydrogen. We have experience in managing very large plants, especially plants that also involve management of cryogenic content, basically gases that have been liquefied. So with the experience from liquefied natural gas in Nigerian LNG, we actually have a very well-trained workforce that could easily transition to the requirements of liquefying hydrogen for export through ships, right? And we already have experience in managing and operating LNG ships, transporting LNG to Asia, to Europe, and the like. And the first LNG ship, which is showcased down on the right, the lowest picture on the right in this slide, which basically recently transported liquefied hydrogen from Australia to Japan as a test of the hydrogen value chain between those two countries, showcases that if the skills we have already in liquefied natural gas could also easily be applied to that aspect of global trade and global energy export. So Nigeria is one of a few African countries besides Equatorial Guinea and Angola, Liberia and Egypt that actually have those the trained and experienced workforce in place. One other aspect generally spoken about globally is the blending of hydrogen into existing natural gas pipelines. There are possibilities to do this up to between 2 to 10 volume percentages of green hydrogen could be easily blended into existing networks based on existing research and pilot tests that have been done in various countries in the world. But then looking into the future, people believe somewhere up to 20 volume percentages of hydrogen could be blended into networks. And then we are now talking about networks in Nigeria, for example, operated by companies like Axela, the Nigerian gas company, Shell Energy, and the likes. And what we need to do to get this blending in place is obviously create the standards, carry out the pilot tests to make sure that hydrogen, which has an embrittlement effect on steel, on normal pipeline steel, will not affect the components within the gas networks we are trying to blend hydrogen into. This will open up the use of more hydrogen within the Nigerian economy. So from a national strategic...
I'm just gonna drop in here and just let you round off a bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to round up here with this natural strategic intent. So basically rounding up, the key thing to keep in mind is to focus on mid to long-term domestication of the hydrogen chain in Nigeria. When I say value chain, I also mean the production of the components inherent within that chain. And that includes the renewable energy technology, solar, PV, hydro, and the like, the electrolyzers, which are used to produce hydrogen, the production of hydrogen-ready pipelines, hydrogen storage, fuel cells, which are then used to produce electricity from hydrogen, the whole hydrogen mobility sector, and obviously the huge opportunity in hydrogen bunkering for ships in our ports, the NP, Nigerian Ports Authority, in the use in airports, in planes. It's a future outlook. So the government needs to draw policies that allows this sector to grow. And I will try to do a further dive into these various use cases, hopefully with you in the future webinar at some point. As you see, there are lots of points. There are still lots of slides to go. I'll provide the slides to you so you can, at your own leisure, look into the slides. And then if you have questions, please kindly send those to me. So thank you for having me. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. This has just been a really great overview. If anyone does have any questions, you can start leaving them in the Q&A section, but that Q&A session will not happen till all the presenters have had their session. So thank you so much for that very encompassing presentation. Going to move on to our next presenter, which is Mr. Merrick. Mr. Merrick has been working in the international business development in several industries for the past few years. In the recent years, he has led major development projects for ILF consulting engineers. He's currently now a senior director of business development energy at IMF in Munich, Germany, where he houses new hydrogen market projects for countries in West Africa across other nations. He's also very powerfully interested in the decentralized energy system solutions. So it'd be really good to get your presentation up now, Mr. Merrick. So I think that noise is coming from your end.
No, can you hear me, or let's see?
So can see you, can hear you though.
Okay, let me see.
Are you trying to share your screen?
Let's see.
Maybe you could turn your, yeah, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can see you, can hear you now.
Yes,
great.
Hello.
Hello.
This, my normal environment is Teams environment, so Zoom is a little bit guest in my office. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Everybody can see me well. Okay, good. Yeah. So thank you very much for having me here today, and thank you for inviting ILF to present about maybe a little bit different perspective than the previous, my predecessor speaker. I would like to present you a little bit of a perspective from the project developer engineering company, and a company that is actually going right into details of the projects, developing projects, and managing projects. And before I start, we probably also have our colleagues from Nigeria office, Mr. Oshodi, who is the managing director of our Lagos office. So we'd like to also pay attention to the fact that ILF is present in Nigeria for the last 35 years, one of the longest standing Western companies in the country, and we have had a tremendous time over those decades, and certainly hydrogen is another reason to expand our activities. So I'm going to share some slides here, and can please advise if you can see it.
Yeah.
We'll not start from the end. Okay, so role of the hydrogen in decentralized energy systems. This is.
Are you trying to share your screen?
Yes, I'm sharing the screen right now.
We can't see it yet.
Sorry. Aha. Okay. I should be able to do it now. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
See it now?
Yes, so just get you in and slide and show mode, and we're good to go.
Okay. And now, not yet, right?
No, awesome, we're good.
You're good? You see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, everything is
Right.
set. Okay. So, so a little bit about the facts of ILF. We are a very traditional engineering and project management company. We're 55 years in business, 8,000 projects, 40 locations of international offices that we have currently running, 115 countries where ILF has worked in, around €250 million in revenue and engineering services, and around 2,500 people that we have currently working for ILF. The 4 business areas that you see here are also somehow connected to the hydrogen topics. It's energy and climate protection, where the hydrogen is mainly hosted, but it was mentioned before, water plays a big role, whether it's the desalination of the water or water treatment, water transport. You need water for electrolysis processes. We have done a lot of very large water projects, including Nigeria, including Africa. Transportation, urban spaces, it's mainly of the civil infrastructure and oil and gas industrial, which has been the most prominent business area for us in Nigeria, in our Lagos office so far. H2, hydrogen is a global business. It is also global for ILF. You can see here the office locations of our company. There's, of course, a dot in Lagos. There is another office in Ghana. The head office, so to speak, is in Austria. Germany is one of the largest and certainly one of the most competent centers. I'm located in Munich myself, in Germany. Other offices which have been hosting the hydrogen topics have been also Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, blue hydrogen and also green hydrogen, Russia and Kazakhstan, also Chile, Canada. So we certainly have quite a global perspective from the hydrogen perspective. We have seen that from the very beginning, from 2017, when the first projects appeared. And of course, now our permanent offices in Africa and many dots that would depict the projects in Africa would certainly play a role in expanding that knowledge to Western Africa and specifically here to Nigeria. I do believe actually that Nigeria is probably, as Isabel mentioned, is the country, the largest country certainly, and the one of the very few in Africa which has a real potential, skills, and possibilities to really capitalize on what it has already achieved in terms of skills, in terms of availability of resources, also land availability, Also, the size of the economy, industrialization is still a big topic, and it will become so. And certainly, the hydrogen has a very big role to play also in industrialization process in Africa, in Nigeria. From the perspective of the hydrogen infrastructure, we see there is no projects in Nigeria yet that has been realized. Those are some examples of the projects that ILF has done around the world. Of course, you see the variety. The beauty of the hydrogen topic is that it is integrated many areas in process engineering and civil engineering and in chemistry. You have the ammonia production topics, you have the fuel cells, you have the import terminals, you have the renewable energy, solar, wind, you have compression, you have very many. It's like a dream for engineers to work in hydrogen business. In terms of the, maybe a slide to show you what that is, it has been mentioned a little bit, but of course in the center of the slide we see the hydrogen. On the left-hand side you have the so-called upstream side, where you have the, whether it's a fossil fuel for the blue hydrogen production or it's a renewable source of energy for green hydrogen production. You see all sorts of different processes. I'm not going to go into this, but it illustrates to you that hydrogen is extremely flexible topic. It's an extremely flexible carrier of energy, of course. It can be produced, it can be separated, it can be used in many areas, can be compressed, can be liquefied, can be connected with the liquid organic carriers. There is ammonia topic, which is huge. There is e-fuels, there is a power topic, there is usage of hydrogen in the mobility sector, in trucks, trains, ships. Ammonia can also be used for a very heavy industry, propelling of machinery and vessels. So we see that really this is what we really enjoy as an engineering company, to work with that puzzles, so to speak, and go into very many uses and very many ways to use and produce and hydrogen. Of course, this relates very much to the decentralized systems, where you can produce and use the hydrogen independent of the major, let's say, grid or gas pipelines. You can build that in a decentralized way. And I think this would be particularly important for Africa, much more than it would be, for example, important for Europe, where you have much more dense industrial networks. And maybe Africa is really the place where this will be the main driver of the hydrogen expansion. This is the integration part, of course, from my left perspective, but it relates very much to all of the companies, I would say, the upstream, the solar, wind, hydropower, desalination, water treatment, transmission. Then you have the power transmission, energy storage, hydrogen production, using pipelines underground. This is very much repeating, but maybe organizing it in the way that my company operates in. Green versus blue, it was already mentioned. I do believe in Nigeria you have actually both opportunities as huge. You have a very robust and large size fossil fuel production system, especially on the gas side. You have extremely big terminal LNG that is being now expanded. Many trains, I believe it's train number 7 being right now designed and built. You have IOCs, international oil corporations, which have been present with this expertise for a long time. So blue hydrogen, I believe it's also a big opportunity for developers to look at. We have been talking with some of them already, which I cannot share the names here, of course, but there is a lot of that. The green hydrogen, of course, abundant of sun, solar, also wind, also PV, could be also near offshore PV, floating, can be onshore. There's all sorts of opportunities for the green hydrogen production, transport, and storage. And basically, as you say, derivatives mainly on the blue hydrogen is methanol, which is a process that you can receive that product. And then ammonia, as a green ammonia, is a big topic. And of course, ammonia is huge in fertilizer and agriculture, which is one of the key and critical industries, and it will remain so in Nigeria and in all of Africa, more or less. And there also ammonia can be used for large power not generation but usage, and using ammonia in a heavy industry for propelling engines. Maybe one slide to show you how we see that here. This is our projection. The green hydrogen has a very, in our opinion, a great potential for long-term growth and competitiveness. What it's showing here, you have, and the speaker before me mentioned certainly this 1.2 to 2.5, and whatever people claim that the hydrogen needs to be priced at in order to be competitive. Right now, certainly the business case, the commercial case for hydrogen is quite questionable, meaning that if you would abandon all of the incentives and government incentives or international financial institutions incentives, there is simply no business case. It is just too expensive, the green hydrogen. However, of course, we have seen it in many industries, and PV is the most obvious one, where you see the price of production of electricity and energy rapidly declining. And we see that already happening a little bit, not so much yet. We believe it will start around 2026. And you see this rapid decline of the green line. Euro per kilogram, and then in the next 15 years, achieving this, this will be the cost of the steam methane reforming, which is the blue hydrogen that is expected to increase over time due to the gas prices and due to other factors. So we believe that this under €3 and closer to €2 per kilogram will be achieved in 2038, 36, so around 15 years from now, and then continuing so. Then, of course, you have the commercial risks of scaling up the hydrogen. You know, there is a supply, there is a demand. Of course, it needs to fit the investment. Was mentioned before by Festus that we need to have also the political frameworks and the regulatory frameworks in Africa and other places as well. However, we believe that this is going into this direction to be funded and supported by governments and institutions, regulated financial support for projects, and then this policy framework that I just mentioned. So I think this is also relevant for the audience to understand that this is a little bit of a boundary condition for hydrogen to be successful in a long term. Without that, it would be impossible, in my opinion, to develop the hydrogen industry and, as they call it, hydrogen economy in some way. So that is a critical success factor for the success of that development. The topics for Nigeria, as I see it, certainly, why would we think about hydrogen in Nigeria? And generally, of course, it is a flexible, it is a seasonal storage, and it's it has this very high energetic value, of course. And as I showed you before, there's many ways and there's many processes which you can deploy to achieve the result. It de facto, in my opinion and our opinion, replaces natural gas in the long term through this funding, through the IFI support, through the government support, for the CO2 price that was also mentioned before. So if you could look into, let's say, 20, 30 years and longer, the whole world going into that direction, certainly natural gas, I believe, will still be there, but will it be completely replaced? We don't know. However, the hydrogen certainly has that ability to replace natural gas. And this is the first time that we have a new fuel, so to speak, that has this ability. This does not exist in electricity, in the battery business, even in oil. So that is quite a critical, revolutionary feature of hydrogen, so to speak. Power generation, I mentioned, the fertilizers, very, very big. Ammonia energy value is actually larger than battery, which is very much not known and not spoken about, but the energy value of ammonia is very high. So if you can produce ammonia, green ammonia, with the decentralized systems, it certainly has more attractive values than battery, because battery, of course, over time loses its ability to retain energy, and ammonia.
Absolutely, Merrick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're just wondering if you could round up in a minute.
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you.
We have more slides. Then basically this is the way how decarbonized system is planned. We have the inputs of the energy and the resource data. We have the existing and retiring plants. We have the storage transmission on the input side. Questions: how do we want to contribute to the net zero emissions? What will be the optimum energy mix? And basically we work with the models like Plexus. We work with the power system analysis. And the answers is, on the right hand of the slide is basically we see that hydrogen would have in the centralized system this possibilities for cooling, heating, a role in heavy transportation, role in the power generation, whether it's pure or it's through ammonia. There is a role in fertilizers. So the energy system planning is considering hydrogen from all this perspective, combines it with the PV, combines it with also natural gas if there's availability of that, and so on. So this is very much what we are using in other projects around the world right now in terms of the hydrogen. There is a lot of projects which ILF has been doing, and there's no time to go through that, but whether it's hydrogen production or pipelines, the mixing in pipelines was mentioned. It's a very big topic, up to 20%. The storage, the refineries, the land transportation, water transportation, usage of hydrogen, and so on, so on. It's one case study which I wanted to show, but this, let's leave it. This is Northern Europe, where it's actually quite advanced feasibility of a decentralized system using hydrogen as the main power source. So with that, the scaling up of hydrogen projects. This is certainly also something which is happening. It's up to a gigawatt scale right now. So with that, we see that Nigeria certainly has a big potential, and we certainly are very keen to continue and to expand our network in the country and talk with the project developers, with governments, with IOCs and other funders and companies to apply that knowledge that we've gained to help the country go forward. Thank you very much. Sorry for being it's over.
You're good. Thank you so much, Merrick. And like we mentioned earlier, the slides will be shared after the presentation. So thank you. So next presentation, and our last presenter for today is Gina Lagunas, and Gina is the head of the German Nigeria Hydrogen Office. She has dedicated her career towards cooperation in the area of renewable energies and energy efficiency, as well as climate change. She has also spent her career advising the German government in development of cooperation agenda in Mexico. She's very passionate about sustainable energy and geopolitical and economic implications of the energy transition, certainly, and a huge believer of green hydrogen potential to decarbonize the economy. Gina is going to be coming up now.
Thank you, Osa. Hi.
Hello, Gina.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much to AHK and CAS for the invitation and for organizing this fantastic webinar. I'm going to share my slides now, or let me.
Yeah, it's coming up. Awesome.
Yes.
Yes. So just go on slide
All
3.
right.
That's great.
Perfect.
Okay.
You. So yes, as Osa said, my name is Gina Lagunas. I am the head of the German Nigerian Hydrogen Office, and I am here to talk about clean hydrogen as a transition pathway for fossil fuel producers. Our hydrogen office is part of the global hydrogen diplomacy program financed by the German Foreign Office, which has country packages in Russia, Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, Angola, and Nigeria. And the key objectives of this program are to support international dialogue on carbon neutral hydrogen, especially with fossil fuel exporting countries. So that's what all these countries have in common. They are all fossil fuel exporting countries, or in the case of Ukraine, a transit country. And another objective is to elaborate opportunities and challenges of carbon neutral hydrogen for economic growth and industrial development, and to provide exchange on Germany's and the EU's decarbonization strategies. So in
Merrick,
particular,
if you could just mute yourself. Hello, Merrick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Go
it
on,
was
Dina.
good. So in particular, the German-Nigerian Hydrogen Office has 3 activity fields. One is the political dialogue. So we want to support the policymakers in Nigeria, to create a hydrogen strategy for the country and to prepare an enabling framework for hydrogen. Also, another activity field is capacity building, and also the cooperation with the private sector. So we want to get the private sector involved in the conversation. And why are we doing this? I'll try to explain this with the following slides. The geopolitical implications of the global decarbonization, as the speakers before me have explained. So here in these charts we can see very well how currently the trade in energy commodities is focused mainly on oil, gas, and coal. But in a decarbonized future, so 2050, when most large economies of the world are going net zero, we see that the role of oil and gas will shrink considerably, and on the other hand, the role of power to X products, so in this case we see hydrogen, methanol, and ammonia, will grow considerably. So this means that the energy transition will significantly affect fossil fuel producers. And here we have a chart of the revenues as from fossil fuel exports as share of GDP of the big exporting countries. We see Nigeria having almost 10% of GDP coming from oil, mainly oil exports. And what this means is that these are the countries that will be most affected by the global decarbonization if they don't act, of course. And it's not something that will happen in the distant future. Already, the 20 countries that are most dependent on oil and gas exports have seen a downgrade on their sovereign ratings. So it's an effect that we can see already now. And some countries, to offset these effects, have already put initiatives in place to diversify their exports. And in the case of Nigeria, there is the Nigerian Export Expansion Facility Program with 50 billion naira to focus the attention on non-oil exports. And so now we have here what can these countries do? So what would be an alternative for them? Here we have, can you see it? Yeah, there was like a twitch in my computer, sorry. So what can these countries do? So clean hydrogen offers an attractive transition pathway for oil and gas exporting countries to diversify their economies. Here we can see the blue part of the columns is green hydrogen, so the increase till 2050 of green hydrogen production. So yes, so that looks like a promising alternative to replace some of the missing revenue from oil and gas exports. And oil and gas producing countries are well placed to pivot to hydrogen, as they can leverage established energy export infrastructure such as ports, pipelines, and storage facilities. And as Iseda mentioned, a skilled workforce familiar with producing, converting, and handling energy fuels and gases, and already existing energy trade relations. Another reason to move to hydrogen is because several fossil fuel exporters have themselves adopted a net zero goal. In the case of Nigeria, until 2060. So clean hydrogen is a vital avenue for achieving these goals. And some fossil fuel producing countries have already adopted national hydrogen strategies, for example, Australia, Canada, Colombia, United Kingdom. And oil majors, for instance, Shell, BP, Saudi Aramco, Exxon, and Repsol, as well as many smaller independent producers and engineering groups have announced ambitious plans to build a green hydrogen business. So it is important to note that even though currently oil and gas companies are benefiting from a post-pandemic return to economic growth, and also an increasing presence of intermittent renewables on the energy grid is currently favoring the consumption of natural gas. But this is not likely to be a long-term situation. So the renewable intermittency is increasingly balanced against battery storage, which keeps getting cheaper, and also with sector coupling measures. So yes, these countries and these oil companies are going to are leveraging already infrastructure and know-how to become strong hydrogen players and to position themselves at the head of the new hydrogen economy. So where to start? If we think hydrogen is an interesting option, where could we start? And of course, there has to be some work on the regulatory frameworks, on certification topics, but I think that's something that has to be discussed in other fora. So I wanted to to provide some pointers just for private sector discussions. And these are just some pointers. As I said, each country situation will be different, and this is just see this as food for thought. But for instance, in the case of Nigeria, since we have this reluctance or this concern regarding green hydrogen, that because the grid is so insufficient and there is energy scarcity, so how can we bring something that will compete with the energy supply to the population? A good option is the direct connection between a renewable energy system and an electrolyzer. So that means to build electrolyzers with their own dedicated renewable energy plants. And that's a good way to start. And I found this chart recently, which I found very interesting. Here, the columns are green hydrogen. These are the index prices from Germany. And the green columns are the green hydrogen produced with electricity from the grid. And the gray continuous line is the current gray hydrogen prices. But what's interesting here is that the dotted line represents the prices of green hydrogen with direct connection with renewable energy systems. So we see it's still higher than gray, but at least in the case of Germany, this is a very recent chart from this month. And so in the case of Germany, the prices are very close. By the way, these prices are cost-based prices, so they represent the involved costs in producing these hydrogen types. So yes, this makes it even more appealing, this option of building electrolyzer with power plant. And where to start in terms of market, because of course with hydrogen, with green hydrogen in particular, we face the chicken and egg dilemma, because there is still no big market in place and there is still no production. So how do we solve that? But there is already a market for gray hydrogen, and a sort of low-hanging fruit for green hydrogen would be to start by replacing that. So we think that industrial applications where hydrogen is already used should be prioritized. For instance, refining and the production of ammonia and methanol. And of course, hydrogen should be reserved for the uses that currently have no viable alternatives. So, for instance, it's not a very good option for personal cars. So, because the electric vehicles seem to be a better option there. So it's better to think of hydrogen for other uses. And for the future, as I said, this is just some food for thought. For Nigeria, an area that might be very interesting is the maritime freight. So because as we have in this slide, the total maritime trade in Africa, it represents about 7% of the global total. And from that, Nigeria represents almost a third already. But most interestingly, if we look at 2050, so higher income and economic growth and a larger population could cause marine freight to grow, and by more than 11 times current values. So even considering energy efficiency and potential reduction of ships' energy consumption, electricity demand for synthetic fuels could reach up to 500 terawatt hour per year. And to put this into perspective, Africa's entire electricity demand in 2019 was about 700 terawatt hour. So there is a huge opportunity area there in which Nigeria could participate. And so my final remarks are that the energy transition will significantly affect fossil fuel producers, and they will have to diversify their exports to make up for fossil fuel income reduction. And a good alternative for this is green hydrogen, because it leverages existing infrastructure and know-how, and at the same time there will be a very big market for green hydrogen and its products. And also, it's very important to consider that the availability of cheap renewable energy and green hydrogen in a country may attract industrial activities, because industries that are very energy intensive might look for areas, for countries that can provide cheap renewable energy and green hydrogen to settle. So this might have an added bonus of attracting more investments in other industries. And for instance, the availability of green steel, it will be a major appeal for many types of industries, for not the least for electric vehicles. And so the highest impact and least effort options should be addressed first in order to ramp up the market. So the low-hanging fruits, such as replacing gray hydrogen. So, but it's important to keep in mind that no decision about energy infrastructure should overlook the fact that the geography of infrastructure in a decarbonized economy could turn out to be very different from what it is today. So it should always be considered. And for instance, in the case of new gas pipelines, it should be considered that there should be a possibility to retrofit them or to repurpose them to transport hydrogen in the future. So that should be factored in the planning and also the cost calculation for these pipelines. And finally, the German-Nigerian Hydrogen Office is here to support Nigeria to assess its prospects and potentials for green hydrogen and support the country to leverage them for a sustainable transformation of its export industry and economy. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gina. That was a really good way to wrap up the conversation this morning. Thank you so much. So we have got a few questions already in the Q&A box, and it's not too late to drop your questions in the Q&A box. So I will call on our three speakers again, and then briefly go through the questions. And I will mention where any question is directed to anyone in particular. So Gina, you could stop sharing your screen. Okay, right. So we have a first question here, and this attendee, anonymous attendee, is asking, so what do you think about waste to H2 solution for Nigeria? So I'm guessing this is around the question of waste being used to generate hydrogen, which has been circulating over the last few days, last few weeks rather. So I think maybe we'll give this question first to Mr. Egohide. So what do you think about the waste to H2 solution for Nigeria?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Waste to H2 is considered one of the parts to producing hydrogen. The key challenge is the sources of waste, as to how the waste is collected, the carbon footprint of that full value chain, as to how the waste is sourced. For example, do you have to truck your waste to the plant? What types of fuel are your trucks using in transporting the waste and the like? So it is one of the sources of producing hydrogen. It is considered renewable to some extent, but the carbon footprint obviously is slightly higher than when you would produce hydrogen from is somewhat higher than when you would produce hydrogen from a renewable energy source.
Can I add to that as well, please?
Yes, of course, Merrick.
Yes. From the
so, by the way, you're currently sharing your screen.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. Okay.
I'm sorry. This is, as I told you, Zoom is not my environment. From a technical perspective, the waste to hydrogen is quite a difficult process, because you need to first gasify it, and then with the gasification of waste, and you produce a syngas. Then you need to do another licensed technology with it's called WGS, which it's a water gas shift reaction. And this water gas shift reaction, then you separate it into CO2 from syngas and hydrogen. So it is possible. Yeah, the carbon footprint is certainly much higher, as it was mentioned, but it's currently it's in theory possible, but it's not applicable, and I think it's quite far away from the practical applications. But maybe this will be a topic. But yes, just add to that to be realistic.
Thank you. I think that's a topic for an entire different day's conversation, most certainly. So the next question here from Benedict Duncan is, what are the prospects for using hydrogen for mobility in Nigeria, knowing that electric vehicles are already in the market? So maybe I'll get Gina. Gina, do you want to give this a go?
Yeah, sure. So yes, hydrogen and electric vehicles have different applications. So hydrogen fuel, hydrogen is more for long haul transport. For instance, trucks that go from one state to another, to trailers that transport products. So they have different applications. For short distance passenger cars, that so just urban mobility, it is very clear more a case for electric vehicles currently, especially because the batteries have gone so far as regards to the having a good range for such mobility. Also, public transportation in cities is also a case for electric vehicles. This might change in the future, but it looks like it's going to settle like that. Like short distance urban will be electric. Also because of building the infrastructure for electric in the long distances, it will be very expensive. So yes, that's how it looks like at the moment.
Thank you, Gina. I like what you said about infrastructure for long distance being quite expensive. Yeah, so I think it's better for heavy duty transportation. Great. I don't know if anyone else had anything to say, but the next question is from Sixtus Okereke, and it's the questions for the first speaker. So Mr. Gohidi, yours again. And it is, what is renewable energy water? What is RE water? I'm not sure if you mentioned that during your presentation, but that's the question. So maybe you could, I think this question is going around electrolysis. I think that's...
It's basically most likely around electrolyzers. The actual use of electrolyzers is in producing hydrogen is to basically split water into its components, right? And so if you want to produce hydrogen at large scale with electrolyzers, you need water. And you need water of a certain quality, which the electrolyzers are able to use. The point I raised in the presentation was obviously in the H2 Atlas, Africa Atlas, which was the report which was implemented by the German government-funded entities. They also looked into the availability of groundwater in the locations in which hydrogen could be produced in Nigeria, and differentiated between locations where there would be a competition between hydrogen used for water used for green hydrogen production as against water used in households and industry and the like, and to ensure that we don't create a conflict, a social conflict in diverting water towards hydrogen production. That was my statement.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope that clarifies the question. So this is for Merrick. The question, Merrick, are you here? Yeah. Okay, the question is, how can solar developers transition to hydrogen economy? I see that some of these technologies need a high level of skill to make economics work. What are the areas where an existing company in the solar space can integrate renewable energy sources and electrolysis to produce hydrogen? This is from Sore.
Yes. Hello.
And your screen is being shared again.
I don't know why it does it. I have no idea. Anyway, now it should be fine. Well, this is I think the way to look at that is when you have the small producers of electricity, solar, and this will be more and more. I think they simply are. They are a supply of energy, and if somebody is about to develop a hydrogen project in the area, they always look at the cost of energy. So if those projects are competitive, of course they will have a role in the hydrogen production, because electricity price is by far the most important economic factor in the long-term production of hydrogen. The cost of electrolyzers is very high currently, but it will come down, as it would have come down with solar panels, with gas turbines, with everything else. It will come down. So in the long term, the price of electricity is really what drives the economics. So how can they transition to a hydrogen economy? They just integral part of it. So especially in projects where you have where they are off grid and they are decentralized, this would be a must. So I think they would naturally find their way into this.
Certainly.
I'm just trying to see here the last one. What are the areas for existing companies aerospace can do? Yeah, I think this has answered that. So.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is possibly for Gina, real brief. So it says, what research opportunities does the GIZ have for PhD students in Nigeria on hydrogen fuel cell study, I guess. Maybe just briefly, but I think someone asked for your email address earlier, Gina, as well. Someone in the chat box asked if your email address could be shared. If it can be shared, you could leave that in the chats box as well for the person who sent it. And then maybe
Sure.
this question as well. Then if she leaves her email, you can reach out to Gina directly, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is, are there chances that Nigeria can be exporting hydrogen? Gina, I'll bounce this back to you. Yeah, so are there chances that Nigeria can be exporting hydrogen?
Sure. Nigeria has and how do you call well, the energy resources of Nigeria, the renewable energy resources are very important. So there's potential there. It has access to a port that has access to the sea. And also in the future, there are plans to build a pipeline that will go from Nigeria to Morocco along the coast. So there are many things that point to Nigeria, like Nigeria's potential to become a hydrogen exporting country. Of course, it has to adjust to the overall strategy of the country, but definitely it's a possibility. Also, well, access to the sea means also there is available water, even though it has to be desalinated, but desalination is not a very significant part of the cost for hydrogen. And also, I recently saw a study by IRENA, so the International Renewable Energy Agency, that says that Africa has the largest potential to produce green hydrogen under $2 a kilo, so a kilogram. So the potential in Africa, the technical potential is very high. Of course, the infrastructure has to be built, the framework conditions have to be in place, and there's a long way to go there for that. But definitely, Nigeria can become an export country, and that's also in case there is interest. Of course, Germany is on the lookout for potential partners for this to supply hydrogen and hydrogen products for its own decarbonization
plans. Yeah, thank you, Gina. Okay, so I may not be able to go through all the questions because of time, so I will be answering a few more specific ones. Merrick, we may have to pull you up again for this one, but this is from Adrian, and it says, just to check with regards to the business case for building electrolyzer plants and other infrastructure for generating green hydrogen, would it be economical for the populace to afford and the level of scalability required? Basically looking at the end-to-end supply chain in delivery of green hydrogen vis-a-vis cost. How can we make this more affordable and easy to scale?
Is this for me?
Well, either you or Mr.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maybe you can put in as well.
To find this in that in the chat box. So this is down a little bit, right?
Yes. So it's further down.
The main thing behind the main question behind this is how much of it's a strategic question, because to develop this industry in Nigeria, there have to be certain incentives put in place, and there could also be a direct decision by the Nigerian government. In some of the slides I did present, I went into some of those issues, and part of that is, for example, a national strategic fund that looks into investing into this components of the value chain, which involves the electrolyzers, the research into the development of electrolyzers. But we've not even talked about solar panels, major scale production of solar panels, of wind turbine technologies and the like. What we do have in place, obviously, to some extent, is hydro, small scale hydro. So if you talk about electrolyzers, there needs to be a consideration of who holds the patents to the technology. And so if you want to basically scale, transit into an electrolyzer producing country, one approach to use, obviously, is to look out into the global space and look at emerging startups who hold technology rights and directly invest in them, like everyone else is doing. And that will be an opportunity for the country to break into that space. And then in doing that, bring some of the production and incentivize the startup to produce at scale within the Nigerian context. But that requires a lot of infrastructure solutions, which I believe Gina can lead to with regards to what we need to do in Nigeria to put that in place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Just to add to that, certainly we also need to realize there is only a handful of locations producing electrolyzers right now. So this is by far not a common business, even in developed, very developed countries. So this is very much down the value chain, but certainly there would need to be parts of the value chain moved to Nigeria and to Africa if this is going to be a sustainable and large volume business.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Merrick. So there's a question here from Chika, and this is maybe back to either Gina or Mr. Eguahide with some experience in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. This says, we already have huge reserves for hydrocarbon. Shouldn't we just look into green hydrogen production and use from our reserves? So I think this is more towards an energy, like why should we be going into hydrogen when we have hydrocarbons? Mr. Eguahide, do you want to take this because you raised
I presented two types of hydrogen which Nigeria could focus on. Saudi Arabia, for example, has already carried out its initial shipments of blue hydrogen in the form of blue ammonia. So there have been shipments going out based on hydrogen, based on natural gas. And the issue is there is a discourse right now whether to simply skip blue hydrogen and move on to the production of green hydrogen, so that the scaling up of green hydrogen is much more faster than it currently is. But then there are other people who say blue hydrogen, which is hydrogen from natural gas, could be a transition model into the green hydrogen space by creating the underlying framework of supply contracts, for example, into Germany and countries of the like. And in doing that, if you create demand, you also create a possibility for the technologies upstream the chain to reduce their prices as demand for the technology scale up. So that's the logic behind it. So Nigeria has a potential to use its natural resources, to use this natural gas as a means to break into that space. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that. It doesn't have to be one or the other, indeed. So this is our last question, and it's going to be for Gina directly. And Nimot says, thanks, quite enlightening presentation. Is there any of the speakers' organizations running a capacity development program, especially with the higher institutions for local adaptation and exploitation of H2 technology? So.
Yes, we are. So just feel free to contact us. I posted our email address in the chat box. So h2office@giz.de. So just feel free to contact us. We want to get also the research institutes and universities involved in this development. So and also someone asked about the role of GIZ. We are implementing this hydrogen program, hydrogen diplomacy program. So that's how it came to be.
Yeah, I think someone did ask that. I saw it. But thank you so much. Amazing. Right on time almost. Thank you so much to our amazing speakers and to AHK for organizing this session. It's been quite enlightening for myself. Thank you for Festus for staying on tune as well. Really had a really good presentation, and the slides will be shared to everyone who's registered, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes, and it's the beginning of a grand conversation across the continent, and one that Nigeria does have a capacity to tap into. So really looking forward to the H2 future. Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for joining today. The good thing about today's presentations is that I promised you it was going to be very enlightening, and I'm very grateful that we had such a great time with our presenters. On behalf of all of us at AHK and the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, I would like to say thank you very much to our sponsors for today, and our sponsors for the project actually, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, here represented by Mr. Festus Kalko. He's having an enjoyable time in Africa's most beautiful city, Nairobi. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank Mr. Izebia Egwaikide, and I also want to thank Merrick Driwa and Gina Lagunes Diaz. Thank you very much today for being a part of today's presentations. We are hoping to get the next webinar up and running in at least under 1 month. So we look forward to having you guys there as well. At the height of today's webinar, we had over 90 people in attendance at the height of today's webinar. It's an excellent, excellent webinar, and I thank you all for joining. And my special thanks goes to Orosa Eharon for a fantastic moderation. I think we'll call her back. Yes, we should call her back.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. Like Orosa mentioned already, the slides will be shared, so don't worry about it. You'll get the slides. Hopefully, if not today, then latest tomorrow. As long as you are registered and you're on the Zoom list, you'll get it latest tomorrow. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you at the next presentation. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.